Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Tim Donner, Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, and Graham Noble. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The Israeli and Palestinian war has renewed a call from Americans to close the U.S. southern border. Not only do refugees, drug cartels, and human traffickers find easy access points, but so do known suspected terrorists. According to a recent report by the House Judiciary Committee, more than 1.7 million known gotaways have evaded Border Patrol and escaped into the interior in the last 2 years. According to former Immigration Customs Enforcement Chief Tom Homan, quote, "If you don't think a single one of the gotaways is coming from a country that sponsors terrorism, then you're ignoring the data," end quote. In 2023, 659 known terrorist suspects were apprehended. Graham, so 1.7 million border crosses are unaccounted for. How vulnerable is the U.S. to another terrorist attack?
We're incredibly vulnerable. Of course, you have to, it's worth bearing in mind the fact that since 9/11, there hasn't actually been a major terrorist attack on American soil. And so that's a positive thing. Obviously, someone somewhere is doing something right because these groups out there are always looking for ways to hit us. So that's a silver lining, if you like. But the thing is, these people coming across the border, obviously, it presents such a fantastic opportunity for our true adversaries, which is people like, I wouldn't say so much Russia necessarily, but China, Iran, North Korea, these people, and groups like Hezbollah and ISIS and Al Qaeda. Obviously, it's a fantastic opportunity for them to infiltrate into this country. The fact that we are allowing so many of these getaways, but even the people who are being maybe detained at the border and superficially questioned and then given some vague court appearance date 2 or 3 years hence, and then told off you go, wherever you want to go in the country, have at it. Even those people. So it's not just the gotaways. It's the people who are even being detected at the border and then released into the country. So we're talking about tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and among those there could be up to several thousand people who are here to do us harm. Now, we don't know yet, and then, of course, over a period of time, do you manage to infiltrate a whole terrorist cell into the country? A whole 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, or whatever, who are working together to coordinate some kind of major attack. So I think right now, and I'm, the libertarian in me hates the thought of us, becoming even more like a police state and a surveillance state. But unfortunately, until we get somebody in the White House who is actually willing to secure the southern border, particularly, and for that matter, even the northern border, because we got to watch, from people coming down from Andrew's part of the world to mess with us as well. And I'm not talking about Canadians. I'm talking about actual other people who enter Canada and then come across the border. We shouldn't neglect the fact that the northern border is also potentially a problem. And until we get someone in the White House who's willing to actually do something to mitigate that issue, unfortunately, all of us have to be very much on our guard over the next, I would say, particularly over the next, year or so. This is an incredibly dangerous time, potentially.
Well, since you threw the ball at Andrew, I'm going to follow up with that. We're all focused on the southern border because it's just so chaotic down there. But apparently, most of the known suspected terrorist subjects have come through Canada. Andrew, explain your country. What's going on?
Okay, so a couple of things. So first, there's a country road between Quebec and New York. It's called Roxham Road. Around 50,000 people have illegally crossed this throughway in the last 2 years. Second, if you look at the data between 2017 and 2023, Border Patrol arrests of individuals on terror watch lists at the US-Canada border has been more common. Now, why is this happening? Well, there's a few reasons for this. First, Canada under Justin Trudeau is welcoming everyone in the country now. If you look at the population growth, we topped 40 million last year. Why is that? 98% of the growth in this country has been through foreigners. So you have, asylum seekers, refugees, permanent residents, legal immigration, all that stuff. So these individuals, they might not be terrorists, but they could be friends or family members considered associates of those who could be linked to terrorist entities. And they don't even have to be Hamas or Al Qaeda. They could be, guerrilla rebel groups, other terrorist entities. This country right now, it's especially the major urban centers, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Ottawa. They're all just, the streets are paved with refugees and asylum seekers. They have nowhere to go. They're on streets, and I'm very sure, because how incompetent this government is, I'm sure many of the odious individuals seep through the cracks. And there's a lot of talk about how a lot of people went north through Roxham Road into Canada. But if they can go through north, I'm sure a lot of them go through south too. So yeah, all the resources, well, I guess I'll use that word lightly, are being poured into the U.S.-Mexico border. But as Graham said, you're eventually gonna have to start focusing on what's happening north. We're not just shipping double Tim Hortons. We could be, shipping also unscrupulous individuals.
Dave, what about the attacks on Jews and Arabs? I mean, that seems to be ramping up again. Like, right after 9/11, it was everybody was targeting anybody that looked different. So, what's going on there? How do we fix that, or how do we even address that?
Well, I think in this case, you have more Jewish synagogues that are being attacked than Arab mosques, and it's simply because of the false narrative that's being pushed, particularly around the explosion that took place in the Baptist hospital in Gaza, and the those who would want to do U.S. and Israel harm pick that up right away, and but unfortunately they're wrong, and it was a false narrative, in that the the terrorists in Gaza, couldn't get their instructions correct on their rockets, and they themselves caused the explosion that was really terrible. But I think that that what we're also kind of having to deal with here is there have been a significant increase in the amount of Chinese that have come through our southern border, about which we know very little. And they are also, you can assume they're among those that got away. And lately we've had a lot of spying going on from China about the United States. So, getting back to one of the things we've talked about, we're having to deal with the world on a number of fronts. Most recently, obviously, Hamas attack on Israel. But because it is so heinous, we can't forget that we have a lot of other enemies that are wishing us harm. And you've got to keep your eye on the ball just about everywhere. And of course, it doesn't help when you have terrorist sympathizers in your own Congress.
That's true. Tim,
Yes.
Can we shut the barn door after the cows got out? Or, have we just opened Pandora's box?
Well, I think that, you're not going to be able to put the horse back in the barn, as long as we're using farmyard metaphors. But you've got to deal with what you're faced with. And right now, the Biden administration is faced with a world that is aflame, and their emotions and their passions are directed against the United States and Israel. But we can't forget that we have other enemies in Russia and China, as well as Iran and North Korea.
Okay, I really want to hear from our now Big Daddy, Tim Donner. You've been in this game for a very long time, probably almost as long as Dave and me. I don't know, but I'm at a loss here, but I know you can kind of round out what an open border means in this time of uncertainty.
Well, no one ever said that this experiment known as the United States of America was going to be easy. And, one of the basic conundrums in this situation is that we are a people who has welcomed those who are oppressed. That's what we're all about. And yet at the same time, we've become so attractive as a destination. You can see it by the millions that are dying to get into the country just through the southern border, that we become such an attractive destination that we've had trouble knowing how to limit this. And so we have tried various things such as border walls. And while many people support Donald Trump's border wall, we can also see that's not an answer to anything. Hamas breached the most famous border wall in the world, the one separating them, Gaza from Israel. They breached it in 25 places. So a physical wall is not enough by itself either. I think what you have to do is make it so that it's not attractive to come to the United States. There aren't going to be any benefits. There is no welfare available for people who enter the country illegally. You cannot stop people physically because they will always try to come over. But you can stop them with what you call a paywall, which is you come here, you don't get paid. You go past the wall, you don't get paid, period. And that will have the greatest impact on the flood of people through our border. But I can't help again but notice that as soon as Donald Trump left office and Joe Biden stepped in, that it wasn't a matter of days or weeks before Putin started massing his troops on the Ukrainian border. A lot of this is the perception of Joe Biden, his weakness and his inability to stand up to the many evil forces in the world that threaten the United States. And I think this election is going to be a referendum on whether people believe. There's a lot of things that are in play in this election, but I think part of it's going to be the simple formulation, which people didn't think about as much in 2020. Which of these candidates, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, can keep us safe? That might be the ultimate issue in the 2024 election.
Well, in a time of uncertainty, perhaps on the brink of a global war, Americans need less division and more of the United States of America. We'll keep you informed. Thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform: YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at LibertyNation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are LibertyNation.com.